Why would anyone confess to a crime they didn't commit? In 1515, the threat of the Iron Maiden forced hundreds to admit to anything just to avoid it. Did torture really work, or just create more victims? Let's uncover 20 medieval torture methods and see if the stories are worse than you've ever heard. Let's start with number 20. The rack forget torture. The rack was a slow-motion demolition of the human body. You're strapped down, wrists and ankles tied to opposite ends of a giant wooden frame. The executioner starts cranking, not fast, inch by screaming inch. Ligaments snap like wet rope, shoulders pop out, hips tear open, ribs strain until they fracture. The sound isn't just bones, it's you unraveling. Blood loss? Minimal. Pain? Biblical. The real terror was that they could stop at any time, and then start again. Confess? Deny? Doesn't matter. You'll talk or you'll keep stretching until skin splits and you're taller by half a foot. Guy Fawkes got the rack in 1606. Afterward, he was so mangled, his signature was a shaky scribble. And the worst part? The rack didn't always kill you immediately, meaning you might just wake up in the middle of round 2. Next up at number 19, collar of spikes. This wasn't just a collar, it was a medieval chokehold from hell. The collar of spikes was a heavy iron ring lined with inward-facing spikes, each an inch or two long, positioned to dig into the throat, jawline, and base of the skull. Once locked on, every movement, even breathing, drove the spikes deeper. Victims couldn't lie down without puncturing their neck. Sleep? Impossible. After a few days, infections festered in the wounds. The constant blood loss left them weak, and their mind broke long before their body did. Some records from the 15th century Germany describe prisoners wearing these for weeks, their only reprieve being the brief removal for interrogation, where the real pain began. Sometimes they were chained to a wall or made to stand in public stocks so the crowd could jeer, humiliation layered over agony. It didn't always kill outright, that was the point. You didn't die quickly. You wished you had. Next at number 18, the scavenger's daughter. Forget being stretched. This nightmare folded you in half until your body wanted to snap. The scavenger's daughter, invented in the 16th century England under Henry VIII, was an iron frame shaped like an A. Victims were forced into a crouch, knees to chest, head bent forward, arms clamped tight. Then the frame locked. This crushing compression squeezed the lungs so shallow, breathing was agony, forced blood to surge into the head until eyes bulged and nosebleeds streamed, and strained muscles into spasms. Held like this for hours, sometimes days, many fainted only to wake in worse pain. Torturers loved it because it left no broken bones, just internal trauma. Chroniclers mention noble prisoners in the Tower of London collapsing into unconsciousness after minutes. In some cases, blood vessels burst under the skin, turning faces black-purple. It was the twisted opposite of the rack, not pulling you apart, but compacting you into a ball of suffering. Survival meant living with torn muscles and permanent joint damage. Now at number 17, burning at the stake. It wasn't just flames, it was theater, fear, and slow execution all in one. Burning at the stake was used across medieval Europe for heresy, witchcraft, treason, and moral crimes like sodomy. Public squares packed with thousands came to watch, sometimes paying for the best viewing spot. The victim was chained to a post, often with green wood stacked around them so the fire burned slower, prolonging agony. Executioners sometimes added tar or pitch for smoke, choking lungs before flames touched skin. In England's Marian persecutions, 1555 to 1558, over 280 Protestants burned, some taking more than 30 minutes to die. In Germany and France, the condemned might be strangled first, but in other places, they burned conscious from start to finish. Chroniclers describe skin blistering, hair igniting, and eyes bursting from heat. The stench was unforgettable. For rulers, it was more than punishment, it was propaganda, a warning carved in fire against anyone daring to defy the crown or church. Next is number 16, pressing, peine forte et dure. In medieval England and France, peine forte et dure crushed not only bodies, but wills. Used mainly on accused criminals who refused to plead, it was a grim loophole. No plea meant no conviction, and property stayed with the family. The victim lay naked on the ground, a board across their chest. Weights, first stones, then heavier iron slabs, were added slowly. The pressure made ribs snap like twigs, lungs collapse, and eyes bulge from sockets. Some endured for days, each breath a battle against hundreds of pounds of crushing force. In 1586, Margaret Clitheroe, a Catholic martyr, died under 700 pounds of stone for sheltering priests. In colonial Salem, 1692, Giles Corey was pressed for 2 days, refusing to plead to witchcraft. His last recorded words, "More weight." Pressing was torture disguised as legal process, a calculated mix of pain, humiliation, and psychological warfare. Now at number 15, crocodile shears. If you were guilty of treason in late medieval Europe, execution wasn't just about death. It was about making a public example. The crocodile shears were forged iron tongs with 4 or more serrated jaws, shaped like a crocodile's mouth. Heated until glowing red, over 600 degrees Celsius, they were clamped around the offender's fingers, toes, or worse, their genitals. The teeth didn't just pierce, they bit deep, tearing flesh and splintering bone in a single wrenching motion. First recorded in the 16th century France for punishing regicides, similar devices were later used in Germany and Italy against traitors and sexual offenders. A famous case in 1593 involved François Ravaillac, the assassin of King Henry IV of France. Before his execution by quartering, his flesh was torn with red-hot pincers in public. The point wasn't just pain, it was spectacle. The crowd could hear the hiss of burning flesh and the victim's screams over the executioner's hammering blows. Next is number 14, strappado. If medieval torture had a sound, the strappado would be the sickening crack of tearing ligaments. First recorded during the Spanish Inquisition in the late 15th century, it became a standard interrogation tool across Europe. The victim's hands were tied behind their back, then a rope was looped around the wrists and hoisted over a high beam. With one sudden drop, the full weight of the body wrenched the shoulders out of their sockets, often on the first pull. Some variations added sudden jerks mid-air or dangling weights to intensify the agony. Records from Rome, 1590s, describe prisoners fainting after just minutes, only to be revived and lifted again until bones tore through skin. The pain was so intense it could cause permanent paralysis or death from shock. The strappado wasn't done in secret. In Florence, the Piazza della Signoria became a stage for public hoistings, the crowd watching bones snap while the accused screamed confessions. Next is number 13, the branks. If you thought medieval punishment was all blood and broken bones, think again. The branks, or scold's bridle, proved that psychological torture could be just as devastating. Emerging in Scotland around the 16th century, it targeted women accused of gossip, slander, or nagging their husbands. The device was an iron cage fitted over the head with a long flat plate, the bit, forced into the mouth. This plate sometimes had spikes or sharp edges designed to tear the tongue and cheeks if the victim tried to speak. Public humiliation was the real weapon here. Women were paraded through town, the iron clanging while crowds jeered and threw filth. Records from Newcastle, 1650, mention the branks being chained to a market post for hours in rain or freezing wind. It left no fatal wounds, but the emotional scars, coupled with disfiguring mouth injuries, could last a lifetime. In many towns, the branks became a symbol. Open your mouth too much, and you might never close it again. Now at number 12, the garrote. The garrote was execution by slow strangulation, but with a brutal twist. Originating in medieval Spain and used until the late 19th century, it consisted of a sturdy chair and an iron collar mounted on a post. The victim was seated, the collar locked around their neck. A screw or lever at the back would be turned slowly, pressing a metal bolt into the spine or throat. In early versions, the goal was pure asphyxiation. The condemned would convulse for several minutes before death. Later improved models, especially in the 17th to 19th century Spain, added a sharpened point that crushed the cervical vertebrae instantly when the screw was turned hard. It was used for crimes ranging from murder to treason. In 1820, Spain even garroted Prime Minister Rafael del Riego for rebellion. Public garrotings drew crowds in the thousands, yet were eerily silent compared to hanging or burning. The psychological horror? The victim sat calmly before their executioner, feeling the cold iron tighten, knowing the next twist could either choke them slowly or break their neck in one snap. Next, at number 11, the pillory and stocks. The pillory and stocks weren't just public shaming devices, they were slow-motion torture machines that could leave victims maimed or dead. Used across Europe from the 13th to 19th centuries, these wooden frames locked the head, hands, or feet in place for hours, sometimes days. In a busy market square, a condemned person became a living target. Crowds hurled rotten food, dung, stones, and even boiling liquids. Teeth were knocked out, bones broken, and eyes blinded. In 1623 London, a man accused of fraud died in the pillory after a stone crushed his skull. In colonial America, long exposure in winter frost or blazing sun could cause frostbite, heat stroke, or permanent joint damage. Victims couldn't eat, drink, or defend themselves from animal attacks. There are accounts of stray dogs mauling helpless prisoners. Authorities claimed it was non-lethal justice. In reality, survival depended on the mood of the mob. Sometimes the real sentence wasn't the time in stocks, but the violence it invited. Next, at number 10, the coffin torture. The coffin torture was exactly what it sounded like, an iron cage, shaped to fit a human body, sometimes barely larger than the victim themselves. Used in medieval Germany, France, and England, the condemned were stripped naked, locked inside, and hung in public squares. If execution was the goal, they were left to starve, dehydrate, or freeze. In more sadistic cases, executioners smeared them with honey to attract insects. Flies, wasps, and even rats would feast for days. Chroniclers from the 14th and 15th centuries describe corpses swinging in these cages for weeks, serving as both punishment and warning. The sight, ribs protruding, flesh rotting, was meant to stick in the minds of anyone considering the same crime. The coffin wasn't about a quick death. It was about turning the human body into a slow, grotesque public billboard of suffering. Let's move on to number 9, knee splitter. The knee splitter wasn't a subtle device. Picture two opposing metal plates, each lined with 3 to 20 spikes, clamped around the knee and screwed tighter until the joint shattered. Originating in the 16th century, it was a favorite of the Spanish Inquisition, but also appeared in Italy, France, and the German states. It wasn't meant to kill outright, it was designed to cripple. As the spikes drove in, they fractured the patella, tore tendons, and ground cartilage into pulp. Victims were often left permanently lame, crawling rather than walking. In some cases, executioners used it on elbows or shins for extra cruelty. Historical accounts note interrogations where both knees were destroyed before questioning even began, ensuring the prisoner could never escape. A French record from 1620 describes a thief whose knees resembled sacks of stones after 3 turns of the screw. No battlefield injury was this precise. This was targeted destruction of the body's ability to move, ensuring agony lasted a lifetime. Next is number 8, tarring and burning. If burning at the stake was hellfire, tarring and burning was hellfire with glue. This punishment began at sea. Pirates, mutineers, and deserters faced it as a warning to others. First, the victim was stripped and lashed to a mast or post. Then came the boiling tar, heated to over 200 degrees Celsius, poured or brushed directly onto skin. The tar didn't just burn, it bonded to flesh, sealing in heat and causing deep, blackened blisters. Finally, the victim was set alight, turning them into a human torch. In some naval executions, the body was left smoldering in place as a beacon to deter others. Records from the 17th century England describe entire crews forced to watch, the smell of burning flesh mixing with the reek of pitch. Unlike a quick execution, this was slow, theatrical, and inescapable, a sentence designed for horror as much as death. It was a spectacle, and a warning carved in fire. Now at number 7, thumbscrews. Forget grand executions. Thumbscrews were torture condensed into the size of a book clasp. This small iron device clamped over the fingers or thumbs, tightened by a screw. Each twist drove the metal deeper, crushing bone, bursting nails, and tearing skin. Originating in the 16th century Europe, they were used by inquisitors, jailers, and even pirates during interrogations. Scottish witch trials saw victims' hands pulverized until they could no longer hold a quill to sign a confession. So a trembling X would do. Some versions targeted toes, making even standing agony. Others had spikes inside, turning every turn of the screw into punctured, shredded flesh. A skilled torturer could prolong the ordeal for hours, just enough pressure to maim without killing. Prison records from Germany, 1620s, mention thieves begging for the gallows instead of another round. Thumbscrews weren't about speed. They were about breaking you, slowly, until you gave them exactly what they wanted. Next is number 6, the chair of nails. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary wooden chair until you saw the hundreds of iron spikes covering every surface: seat, back, armrests, even footrest. Victims were stripped and strapped down, their own body weight driving the spikes into flesh. The earliest known versions date back to medieval Germany, 15th century, with some having 1,500 plus sharpened points. The spikes were often heated red hot before the prisoner sat, turning the torture into a combination of impalement and burning. Executioners used it for hours or days. Tight leather straps ensured you couldn't shift to relieve pressure. Every twitch drove the points deeper. Bleeding was slow, constant, and designed to weaken rather than kill outright. Records from Nuremberg 1536 describe thieves confessing within minutes. Others held out, fainting repeatedly from blood loss. In some cases, interrogators combined it with foot whipping or branding for maximum effect. This wasn't just a chair, it was a throne of agony. Now at number 5, iron gag. Used across Europe from the 16th to 18th century, the iron gag was a punishment designed to make breathing itself unbearable. It was a metal clamp or plate forced deep into the mouth, pressing the tongue down while a sharpened edge dug into the roof of the mouth or throat. Victims were locked in place with iron straps around the head, sometimes bolted to a wall or post. Every movement of the jaw or attempt to breathe scraped tender flesh. Bleeding was common, and in some cases, the tongue swelled so badly that it blocked the airway. A slow, suffocating death. In 1720s, Saxony, thieves were paraded through towns wearing it, drooling blood while crowds jeered. Inquisitors also used it in interrogation, knowing that pain and inability to speak broke resistance fast. The iron gag silenced more than words. It crushed the will. Next is number 4, the drunkard's cloak. In 17th century England, public drunkenness wasn't just fined, it was shamed into memory. The drunkard's cloak was literally a beer barrel with holes cut for the head and arms. Offenders were shoved inside, the stinking wood clamped around their torso, and marched through town while children threw mud and stones. Records from Newcastle in 1655 show dozens punished this way, some forced to walk for hours until they collapsed from exhaustion. In winter, the damp wood froze against skin, causing frostbite. In hotter climates like Spain and parts of Italy, the stench of